and they stop. So those are generally not considered, options that are favorable. So the question is, well, what tools do you apply to different areas? And the police commission is the local traffic authority in the town of Windsor Locks, so I would have to come to you. But I'm kind of prioritizing from the most pressing, and I think that there's nothing you can do about Old County, except perhaps stopping trucks that go through. What seems to happen is, it's not so much the trucks that come off at 20 and then they pull into the Old County Circle, the business is there. That's fine, that's not the problem, but there's an awful lot of trucks that are coming off of Old County, and they're going, off the Route 20 exit, and they're heading to Route 75 that way. Sometimes stopping at Dunkin' Donuts on the way, but they're using that as an angle. And I think maybe it's to avoid the stoplights on 75, or because their GPS is telling them that that's a more direct route. It's an industrial road. Certainly it is up to Old County Circle, and that industry wraps around farther down Old County, but there's no entrances off Old County. So there really isn't a reason for a truck to be using Old County, other than to save, the little bit of distance or time. So, but there's no town or state regulation that's going to help us in that regard. So that is one we've got to look as to whether or not there's some road design changes that could help. The one that I think is the most pressing, well, really two. Subfield Street, I think we should consider applying to the state to have that designated as a no-through truck route. I don't see you inconveniencing these drivers at all, because they've got 75 to use. And so that's something that I'd like the commission to consider as in your function as the local traffic authority. And that would be to North Street, to North Street only. Then the other one is North Street itself. It's bad enough that we've got the hill, that the bus, on North Street, that the bus drivers have to work up, especially in snow and all that.
And the stop sign at the top.
The trucks using that hill, it seems to me that it's just a problem, an accident waiting to happen.
Can I add something to that? There's 3 companies in 131 North Street. I work with them, all 3 of them. Most of the guys are good that work in there. If you went in and told their drivers, when you go out, when you take a right-hand turn, go to 75, most of them probably would. They get other companies that come in from out of it, that don't work out of those buildings also, because, you'll have Yellow or ABF delivered to those places, and they don't know that they're not supposed to go right or left out of the building. But the guys that work out of those buildings, you went and talked to there's 3 companies in there now. Went in and talked, well, actually there's 4. Another one just moved in. Went and talked to the owners and say, we'd like to request for you to tell your drivers to only take a right-hand turn, or you can have them ask them to put a sign up at the end of the driveway, right-hand turn only. I work out of those, except for me, because if I want to go home, I got to take a left.
I'm not sure if
I live right off the North Street.
trucks are requested not to use this road.
Yeah, there is a sign.
Yeah.
There is on both ends.
75 end or on the other end?
Both ends.
But
It's a request.
yeah.
It's a request, right?
But what Bob's talking about is the community outreach aspect, which should be part of any of these steps. That should be included in any of those, obviously, and that should be the first step. But the trucks are requested not to use this road certainly isn't having the effect we want. So we should consider on North a local ordinance on there as well. But I think we should try other alternatives first there. So the one I had asked the commission to consider first is Subfield Street, because there's really no good reason for a tractor trailer to get. They can't even get to Subfield that way, well, except for Austin Road. And there's a viable route, a truck route, constructed to that to the tolerances of that. And it won't solve it. And if a local operator needs to go to Subfield Street, they will, because a through truck route doesn't prevent local people who if you have a delivery, it's fine. So I'd like to start there, and I think we could try the community outreach on North Street to see what works. And then the Board of Selectmen will probably have to commission a study of some sort by traffic experts to deal with Old County Road. But I don't think the commission really has a role on Old County Road, because the regulation options seem to be off the table for that particular road. So it's, different roads, you have to come up with a different solution for each one.
You don't mention Elm Street, is that because it's a state road?
It's a state road, and,
But there are issues on Elm Street.
oh, there are. It's
I have something for the chief after the meeting. I talked to an individual that has some major concerns with truck traffic, house shaking, all
Yeah.
that good stuff.
Yeah, I grew up in Elm, and, yeah, it's there. I think the general, where we sort of are, is that it's the lesser of three evils. Especially with the Alstrom trucks, which are going back and forth about once an hour to their warehouse on 75. There's going to be east-west path crossing of traffic, you know, through town. And so the question is, do you want them on North, Spring, or Elm? I mean, it'd be nice if there was another way and they didn't have to go through any of those. But right now, the way our town is laid out, they've got to use one. And so Elm is the odd man out. And as a state road, you know, it's there. And of course, the maintenance falls to the state of that road. So if trucks put more burden on the road, at least we can get the state to pay for that than burdening the town roads. It's not ideal, but it's like I said, the lesser of three evils. I do want to mention that there is only one spot in town now that's a designated through truck route by DOT, and that's Spring Street from Volunteer Drive to Main. That's already a through truck prohibited route. So I would ask the commission to help us out with enforcement there, because there's no question that if there's a vehicle on that route that you know, appears to be out of place because of its size, at least you could check it out and see, is it a local vehicle or is it somewhere coming from?
What is that reason?
So it's Spring Street from Volunteer Drive to Main. That's the only designated no-through truck route in Windsor.
There's a sign right at Volunteer.
I don't think we see very many trucks using that area.
Yeah.
And in my travels.
But,
I'm traveling at the wrong time.
Complaints that we have received, several complaints now too, increasing. But they won't, mostly they originate in town. I'm hearing the FedEx trucks and trucks originating at the corner of Smalley Road and Spring.
Yeah.
The through truck prohibition doesn't affect that, because they're originating or terminating in town. So that's a location that if we don't get some progress, we might want to consider a local ordinance there as well. But, you know, I think we should take an incremental approach here and try and attack the worst first. I would submit that Subfield Street is the worst, but North Street is close behind. But I think there's an opportunity for the local businesses to do some more community outreach on the North Street businesses to see if we can get some. But it's increasing considerably, and all day long.
You're looking for us to do through DOT a request to make it a no truck route.
Yeah, I'm looking for
on Suffield.
the police commission as the local traffic authority to authorize a request to DOT to designate Subfield Street between North and the town line as a no-through truck route. I think that would be a positive step.
Chris, when they go up Austin, there's only one road up there, right?
Excuse me.
Was that Firestone?
Just so you
Okay, I
understand,
know.
if we allow you to speak, then everybody else can speak, so just.
I'm just trying to.
I'd like to speak.
I'm a, you know,
Right.
All right.
I drive these routes with my truck.
I understand that, but if we allow you, then we have to allow everybody to speak during, all right, so. I just have maybe a suggestion. Can we, during the week, can we have officers monitor Suffield Street, the number of trucks going up there
We could,
for a period of time and just kind of get some.
for that period, from North Street to the town line.
Yeah. Just to get some input as to what we see, number of trucks and frequency.
I have a question for Chris, or maybe a recommendation. I know in Windsor, between, my mom-in-law's got a bakery on Palisado Ave, a little common shop there,
Okay.
Palisado and Hayden Station.
Oh, yeah.
And there were some issues with traffic on Hayden Station Road. People traveling from Palisado Ave to going up Hayden Station, which would bring you up, could bring a lot of people who drove up to Old County.
Right, right.
And they put a roundabout there, and they did some of the street design as you discussed.
Yeah.
Shrinking the road. They
Yeah,
put some,
kind of a raised crosswalk at one point.
yeah.
Did it help?
I don't know, that'd be a question, that would be, maybe the residents ask, you know, maybe ask the town, and for a lot of those people. It's definitely slowed down a lot of the truck traffic, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, those, if they're designed properly, trucks can still negotiate them but they have to slow down significantly.
Yeah,
Because they have the roadway, but then they have the center circle, but then there's usually it's pavers or stamped concrete or stamped asphalt, sort of a rivet that they go through, they can put their inside tires on without damaging the road, but they still gotta slow down to do that. And eventually, I think the idea is that if there's a better route available anyway, then eventually they'll say, oh, heck with that, I'm just gonna have to take the better route. But fire trucks and all that can still pass. So, you know, that's where design considerations, come into play as one of the other tools available.
May I have permission to speak? I have something I could add, because we visited this subject
Go ahead, Bill.
when Officer Shelley was around. CNS has always been a lot of truck traffic, and what we tried many years ago is to post the signs to say trucks are requested to use Route 75. Then we reached out, I guess, to the companies to try and tell their drivers that when you come to Windsor Locks, try to use Route 75. Now, for me, from an enforcement standpoint, if the road is only posted, trucks are requested not to use the road, and I don't have any statutory authority, but to say, hey, look, there's a sign here, you're requested not to use the road. Okay, but if we have an ordinance or a state regulation that gives the officer some enforcement authority where we can issue a ticket, then let's go for it. But I heard Selectman KERVICK's request that we make Subfield from North Street, Subfield Street from North Street on as a no-through truck route. How do the truckers know this? Because I just learned something today. I did not know that Spring Street from Volunteer Drive to Main Street was actually a no-through truck street. You know, if you want the police to go out there and do the job, you need to give them the tools to just stop a driver and say, hey, look, you requested not to use this road. That's one thing. But there are truckers who are just going to just say, well, okay, there's no law. You can't enforce this, and they're just going to blatantly ignore what you ask. So,
yeah. And where GPS has been a somewhat of a source of the problem, it can also be somewhat a solution to the problem, because I understand that the truck-specific GPS now that truckers are all starting to use, that ordinance information will be entered into the system. So as they start to go, they'll know that that's a no truck route. So maybe it can help us too.
Real quick, Mike.
Just, I know that Mike talked about the Rotary and Hayden Station Road. When they were discussing this at the selectmen's meeting, there was a gentleman that moved to Windsor Locks on Old County Road that came from Windsor, and he must have lived on that street because he talked about the Rotary there. And if Mr. KERVICK remembers, the gentleman told us at the selectmen meeting that when they built that Rotary, they forgot about one thing. They built it with blocks, concrete blocks, and the truck traffic couldn't make the Rotary, so they went over the Rotary. And every year, they were breaking the blocks, and it was costing the town a fortune to replace the blocks. And then he said what the biggest problem that the town of Windsor made when they made the Rotary is that they forgot about the fire department. The fire department couldn't get their tower ladder around the Rotary. So what ended up happening, and do you remember that, Mr. KERVICK? He turned around and he said that.
I'm only talking about roundabout.
Anyways, I'm talking about a roundabout and the Rotary same thing. Anyways, the fire department couldn't get their ladder truck, their tower ladder around the road.
Yeah, that's a question of engineering design. It would have to be designed
No, we
properly
understand.
by competent engineers.
We understand it. Any decision we make has to encompass all of the nuances
emergency vehicles.
So that's all I got, unless you
The
have some
commission would
questions.
like, we'll look at the truck traffic and also look at the processes to go through DOT.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Recommendation
sure about the
or something.
recommendation, or at least
Yeah.
what the process is, and
Yeah. I
if
think
she wants
that's
to move forward, we can do that.
reasonable. No, I think more information we have to go in the right direction, I think the better. All agree?
Great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. Here, there's been some more additions in your.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we'll go back to our regular order, number 5, correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence to bring forward before I do?
None.
So under correspondence, you all received a packet from me regarding 2 complaints by Mr. Bracken. After reviewing these documents, truthfully, I find no basis for any action by this commission. I don't find that there's anything within the realm of our authority within these complaints. The complaints, to the best of my knowledge, have all been adjudicated. I don't believe this commission has the authority to, like I say, take any action with regards to them, so therefore, I see no purpose in discussing them or seeking any type of commission action on them. Anybody has anything contrary to that? I'm open.
Well, I have a comment. Up until the last meeting, that was the first time I heard that Mr. Perry actually did write a letter and submitted it to Mr. Hahn to sign. We here, police officers are held at a higher standard. We, as a board of elected officials, are held at those higher standards also, or should be. Anybody that does something like that, I believe, is unethical and questionable for a position on this board. And that's my feeling, just from reading through the information provided. And I think that it should be, if we have to go out to an outside agency, I think it should be investigated to see if what's in there is correct for determination. I don't think we as a board can just sit here and, could be anybody's complaint against one of us or the whole commission. And ignoring a complaint, whether it be from Michael Bracken or Joe Blow, questioning the standards or ethics of an individual on the board, I think is a serious matter. And as I said, until the last meeting, I didn't realize or hear from him, until I heard it from him, that he actually wrote a letter, submitted to Mr. Hunt for sign, and then sent back to the chief. So I know that if I did something as a police officer, wrote up a statement and had someone sign it that was untrue, that I'd have some serious consequences doing something else.
In what regard though, Rick? You read up a statement with regards to what? If you're talking about, an investigation, police-related investigation, then absolutely. Obviously, you have them put
As
in
I
their
said,
own
we're
words
held
and
to a
so on
higher
and so
standard.
forth, but, I don't personally see it being unethical for an individual to write up a letter, the person reads it, apparently acknowledges to reading it, and sign it themselves. They put their signature on it. He didn't sign it as Mr. Tran. He merely wrote it up, allowed him to review it, and Mr. Tran had it submitted to the chief's office. Nobody's hid that.
For what
Nobody's
reason? That was hidden
denied
for me.
it.
That was hidden for me. All I heard was rumors until Mr. Perry admitted to it. That's something I would never think of doing ethically.
Well, from my
And I wouldn't think that
understanding, he
anybody
wrote
on this
it.
board of police commissioners would ever do something like that, ethically.
Well, I'm right here, why don't you,
I'm
maybe
telling
you're
you.
gonna comment to that?
You can comment all you want to it.
So I did reach out to Hotran, and did you read through the documents that Mr. Bracken had
I
submitted?
did.
So the correspondence between myself and Ha, as you saw in the documents, there was nothing unethical on it. I reached out to him because I sat here in the crowd here on several police commission meetings, and I witnessed, just as we witnessed today, you know, the raging